estamos aqui com uma lenda britânica, uma lenda relacionada aí a New Wave of British Heavy Metal, Mr. Neal Kay. Para quem não conhece...
Boa noite, boa noite.
Oh, boa noite, boa noite. É satisfação enorme. Neal Kay é um dos grandes aí, DJs que só descobriu aí, deu uma força para uma banda aí que ninguém conhece, chamada Iron Maiden. E a gente vai conversar com essa lenda aqui. Christian, seja bem-vindo, Christian. E eu quero já começar conversando, perguntando para o Neal, voltando, pegando aí uma cápsula do tempo, voltando para o passado, como Neal Kay, né, começou no rock, né? Como se deu a trajetória, o que inspirou o Neal a se tornar um DJ, como é que ele se envolveu com o rock e com heavy metal?
Okay, Jay is asking about your long past with rock and roll and heavy metal, and how did you become a rock and roll DJ? Like, how was it?
All right. When you want me to stop so you can translate, let me know. Put your hand up or something so I know. Okay. Well, let's see. I've been 55 years in entertainment. I am 73 years old. I left school in 1967. I was immediately attracted to and got a job as the youngest London club DJ of the times. I worked 6 nights a week from 8 at night until 3 in the morning. By 1969, I answered an advert for the Playboy Club in West Berlin, where I drove over at 19 years old and did a 9-month session over there for 2 clubs. I worked in the Playboy Club from midnight until 6 as guest British or English DJ. And from 9 till midnight, I was working in a big underground rock club called the Big Eden. In working in London, none of this was rock. It was music of the day. Eventually, I came home from West Berlin, went back to the clubs for a while until the music changed. Back then, everybody in nightclubs danced to everything of different styles. You know, we had early Jethro Tull, for example. I was playing ballads by the Moody Blues, the original band Nights in White Satin from Days of Future Past, with the London Symphony Orchestra. Beautiful album. 1967 for us saw the dividing between pop music perhaps and rock music with the Beatles album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. We all felt that the musicians originally in many bands of pop group style were growing up. Instruments were changing as well, technology was moving on, and by the end of 1969, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin had established their first albums. My sympathies towards the growing rock fraternity or the music of rock were always there. You know, you might play early free, and then latterly maybe Bad Company. For some reason, I've always been attracted to the life. You know, I ride motorcycles, I fly aircraft, or I have. Yeah, I had a pilot's license from 1982. I'm happy on 2 wheels as well, have been for years. I was the president of a bike club for 2 years as well. Collindale Motorcycle Club. I've always lived that life because it's in me. It lives here. You know, the business of rock crept up on us all. I mean, we made the transition. Look, as a club DJ in London, eventually music changed and I hated it. When the OJs, that sort of shit came along, right? You know, and then Barry White, fuck that. It was enough for me. I was gone. I was listening to better music even then. John Mayall, you know, songs from Laurel Canyon, nice album. I was listening into blues and stuff back then. And I don't know, I just had to get out of the clubs in London. The music was suffocating me. By then, you know, I'd been to West Berlin. I was broadcasting for British Forces broadcasting in Berlin as well. I worked at the Underground Rock Club. One of my favorite bands from those times, 69, was a band called Gravy Train. They were an experimental jazz rock band led similarly like Jethro Tull with flute. And the album was Ballad of a Peaceful Man. And I never forgot it. And even today, I have it stored in my computer as I love listening to it. My actual love of music is very, very broad within the rock spectrum. It's not just heavy metal for me. It's a lot more. Do you want to translate that or?
Yeah. It's like I'm gonna summarize it.
Very short.
I warned you. You got 55 years of my working life here.
For sure. Bom, o Neal falou ali, né? Ele já está há 55 anos, né, dentro desse lance, né, do entretenimento. Ele começou bem novo ainda. Ele foi para a Alemanha, né, para Berlim, ali onde ele começou como DJ, né. Ele sempre teve ligado nessa coisa da música, esse lance com rock sempre teve dentro dele, né, é uma paixão dele, assim como é a paixão dele por motos também, né? Ele anda de moto bastante, curte bastante, assim, também pilota, né? Então, tipo, ele tem isso dentro dele, assim. Aí, tipo, quando ele foi para a Alemanha, ele levou um pouco também dessas coisas da Inglaterra junto. Quando ele voltou, né, tava o rock tava tendo aquela transição toda, né? Tipo, como ele fala ali, ainda, né? A coisa ainda era aí, tava morfando, assim, né? Ele menciona o Sgt. Pepper's do Beatles como divisor de águas ali, né? Como o que já começa a fazer com que o rock fique mais pesado, coisa e tal, e o Black Sabbath, né? Que deu toda essa importância, assim, para a cena em geral. Ele trouxe muito, né, de conhecimento ligado com isso, que ele passou de Berlim para Londres, né? E ali ele sempre ficou em casas noturnas, assim, sempre foi o trabalho dele, sempre foi. Também gosta bastante de jazz, também, né? Sempre ouviu bastante esse tipo de música também. E é uma coisa que, tipo, ele tem prazer, assim, ele não ouve só heavy metal, né? Ele falou ali, tipo, é uma coisa mais vasta, assim. O rótulo depois foi mudando também um pouco, assim. Mas ele pegou toda essa transição também, né? Ele viu nascer a coisa, né? Eu até vou comentar isso com ele, né? Speaking in English, linked to your career, you were kind of a lucky one because you saw the transition of rock and blues becoming heavy metal. And how was it to be there in the exact moment it happened? Is, you know, you were one of the guys who saw like Iron Maiden becoming Iron Maiden and things like that, because you were a DJ at that time and things like that. But the most important, you were there when the things start to change. And I think it was like must be so emotional when we remember this, because my generation is, I am 40 6 years old, so it's like I was involved in kind of things like death metal, thrash metal in the beginning too. It's like, but you were like on the roots of everything. How do you feel about it?
But look, I think you have to understand where I come from. In order to understand me, you have to know a few very, very important facts. I'm not just a disc jockey. I guess I never was. The man up in the heavens gave me musicians' ears. He didn't let me play very much, but he gave me the ears of a musician. Now, I come from a family that is decisively split in half. My mother's family, her father, my grandfather, was a vaudeville entertainer in the 1920s. He was a song and dance man, and all her family, her brothers, were all on the stage as well. My mother too, during the Second World War. So my mother's family are all showbiz people, right the way back. My father's side is completely different. My father was in the British Royal Air Force during the Second World War, in Bomber Command on Lancaster bombers as a navigator. He loved the Royal Air Force, and he wanted me as a young man to go into service when I was old enough. But it was the 60s. I didn't want to grow short hair. I wanted to fly, but not in the British Royal Air Force at the time. I didn't like school. I hated it. I was rebellion. I'm a counterculture person originally of the 60s. That's what I am. So I have my father's military upbringing on one side, which says repeatedly, if a job is worth doing, then do it completely or don't start it at all. That's important, very, to me, because that's one of my creeds. That's another reason why I have to drive so hard to get everything done that I wanted to. Being in the middle of the 60s, with watching the change, I mean, we were aware, I think, that something very big was happening with youth culture around the world. Up until that time, the 60s, there were no teenagers through the 50s. That didn't exist. I mean, I was growing up in the 50s as a kid. No television. Hadn't been invented yet. I was born 4 years after the end of the Second World War. The buildings around where I lived were destroyed by the Germans. There were bomb sites and things, ruins. Everything was rationed, food, clothes, and the pre-war idea that kids had carried on in the 50s. That is, that you dressed like your mother and father, you spoke like your mother and father, you only spoke when you were spoken to. Boys wear ties and shirts. It was that kind of a thing. And of course, when the 50s rock and roll started happening, there was a kind of a counterculture, but not full. Mums and dads hated rock and roll because they saw it was destroying their idea of a pre-war life. And for the first time in the 1950s, young kids just leaving school, and back then in my country, you could leave school at 15. During and before the war, it was 14. You could go out and get a job at 14, but no one had any money because you lived at home with your mother and father. In the 50s, things started changing. Kids had money to spend. The first teenagers arrived with money to spend their own fashions in the 50s, but it never really started happening until the 60s. And in the 60s, the explosion of, how do I say this? Let me think. Fashion, art, and music all came together at once with young, thinking minds of the time. And it produced a worldwide effect. It did. We all knew that it was a big thing. We didn't realize where it was going, but we all wanted to be on board. I thought it was great. You know, I just wanted to get out there and be a part of it. Everywhere you went, every place you went, as long as someone had long hair, they'd talk to you. Strangers in the street. Hey, man, what's happening? You know, cool,
Yeah.
very cool.
I remember that time.
Yeah, I mean, even we had Harry Krishna walking up and down the main streets in London, ringing the bells, and, you know, the fucking hell. I mean, the whole of the world was, I mean, if you stood downwind in Hyde Park in central London and breathed in, you'd be stoned for weeks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone was smoking. Look, Timothy Leary was an American soothsayer of a kind. He was partly responsible for developing acid, LSD, which the American military first used. It wasn't us, it was them. You know, Timothy Leary said, you know, turn on, drop out, and, you know, and smoke and take drugs and shit. The Moody Blues mention his name on their second album, In Search of the Lost Chord. The song is called Timothy Leary's Dead, and they sing about him. The Beatles met him, you know. Everything was going great, but not for parents. Fucking child. I got thrown out of, yeah, fuck it. I got thrown out of my house when I was 17. I had to leave home, you know, because I was out all night. I didn't give a shit, to be honest with you. I hated school. My school was like Bruce Dickinson's, the same sort of thing. A British public school. My school was founded in 1536. It was one of the oldest, most established in London. And I hated every minute of it. I didn't want to be there. You know, lads, I'd have been happier in a technical college, learning mechanics, engineering, as I've always been that person. I didn't get any exams at school other than French, which I spoke, and I do still speak. My first school was a private school. I went at 4 years old. My mother and father wanted my school years to be what they wanted. No one ever asked me what the fuck I wanted, man. You know, you know, you can imagine my mum and dad, one from the Royal Air Force and one from the stage of years ago. Mothers and fathers, they couldn't control us in the 60s. At that time, in my age group, all they knew were crooners. They knew brass music and big band sound from the 30s and 40s. And of course, Frank Sinatra, these sort of people. The problem was they couldn't cross the guitar years. As soon as the guitar came along, that's it. They were finished because they didn't understand the sound. You know, I mean, my hero, my real hero of those times, let's see, it's Buddy Holly. It's not Elvis Presley. I don't give a shit about him. Buddy Holly was very, very inventive. He developed the overdub studio system. He was the first person to play non-rigidly written down musical score. And he was allowed to produce and arrange his own songs. He was the first person to do that. They tried to make a country and western version of That Will Be the Day. And he was under a country and western producer who finished up with one of these in the eye because Buddy couldn't stand it. I think the man was an absolute genius, and if he'd have lived long, he would have proved it. Yeah. I like also Chuck Berry, the master of 12 bar. It don't come any better, you know. Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, they're the heroes of mine. And the DJ who started it all off, Alan Freed. Alan Freed actually coined the term rock and roll from his New York radio station. He is the man that gave the world rock and roll. The other one on the West Coast, I also admire still, Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack had this act that he used to talk like this, baby. The Wolfman's gonna get ya. That was Wolfman Jack. And there was another guy in New York called something the K, my surname. And he was Murray. I think it's Murray the K, actually. Those to me are the heroes that I believed in. I don't give a shit about dance. That doesn't bother me. You know, I don't care about Elvis Presley and his fucking actions. Yeah. He's a dildo to me. I don't care. And you'll find me very opinionated, fellas, because I've lived a lot of years and I've seen them come and go. And the ones that really matter, I believe, are those. They're the ringleaders of the 12-bar rock and roll thing. Without them, we would not have had hard rock. Sure. The first, you know, like I've watched it happen. The first acid rock group, who's that? I'll tell you. Quicksilver Messenger Service, round about 1967, released an album called Who Do You Love? It was a concept album. The whole of side 2 was one song. The A side was split into different tracks. Who do you love? Where do you love? How do you love? And it was an acid band, one of the very first. You know, I've lectured in rock as well. I'm not just a DJ. I was in Portugal, funnily enough. I was on a college tour lecturing in the history of rock and roll, curiously. And I love my history, you know. I didn't get to heavy metal. I mean, I knew about it, you know. I think one of the first, obviously it was, I was in Germany when the first Sabbath album came out and the first Led Zeppelin album. But Led Zeppelin are never, ever, ever a heavy metal band. They are a blues acoustic band. I hate people who think they're a heavy band. Hell, they've even done a country number on one of their albums. You know, this identity business drives me nuts. You better translate some of that. I'm sorry.
Acho que nem precisa, Christian. Faz resumão.
Gonna do like a very short version about your life story because it's pretty interesting, you know, because when we talk about the past, people
frozen
countries, how long it took to each country to recover after the war and things like that. People think everything was like done all of a sudden and started like that because it starts like that. Yeah. There is a background involved in and things like that, you know. It's like, and as you said, we have a reason to become as we, or to behave the way that we behaved in the past, because there were things happening. There were still like stains of the past, which was not very like past in that time. So it's like, it's pretty interesting to talk about it, link to the rock roll scene. It's like the younger people being a little bit more aggressive and things like that against the government, against politicians and things like that, because you were the generation who came after a war. So it's like you were not supposed to like a war or support a war anyways, because growing up or being raised during a wartime, you understand that war is not a nice thing. It's not a great thing to say, like, oh, that's part of a war. It's like, no, not a retarded one to say that. But I'm going to speak a little bit in Portuguese.
Yeah, put it up because I've got I do have a comment about war before you do. Look, sometimes people today, usually those in the church, say that the last good war was the Second World War. That monster, Adolf Hitler, had to be stopped, no matter what it took. My father and his colleagues, they flew countless operations over enemy occupied territory. Bomber Command had 110,000 members of aircrew between 1939 and 1945. And I will tell you straight that 55,000 of them were killed on operations against Nazi Germany and the occupied countries. Half of the command died in operations. I'm not a warmonger, but I am a believer in war when it's just. I feel sorry for Ukraine right now. I wish I had more power to deal with that situation. It just reminds me, it looks like Berlin did in 1945. There's not a building left standing. Those poor people are suffering beyond humanity. But the world has learned nothing. They stand by and they watch, and they do not get up and say something. They provide weapons, and that's all they do. It's not enough.
Yeah.
There are times when humanity needs help, and this is one of them. I don't hate war. I hate useless wars, such as the Vietnam War, which I thought was stupid, ridiculous, and completely and utterly worthless. That I hated. That was ridiculous. Yeah. That is a stupid waste of life. But sometimes, gentlemen, you have to stand up and be counted. Steve Harris and I fought a war. Steve's war was to establish a future incredible band called Iron Maiden. My war was fought alongside Steve. My job was to establish my club, to get the music industry to trust me professionally so that I could move heavy metal and rock into a more wide spectrum across the board, not be hemmed in and laughed at and ignored by the industry and everybody else.
Yeah.
That was my war. You have no idea how difficult it was. Hey, people with long hair used to get thrown out of British pubs. Oh, we don't want you here with your dirty hair and your motorcycles. It was impossible. I had a fight on my hands, and I've had a way of dealing with it to establish my bandwagon heavy metal sound house. I did. Translate for your people, and then we'll come back and we'll explain more. You've got to fight for what's right.
Yes, that's sure. That's really sure. It's like I think you explained very well this part of being in a war to achieve something.
It's my father. He fought a war to stop. Hey, you think I want to see those bastards walking up towards Buckingham Palace and flying the swastika over Buckingham Palace? No.
Yeah.
And my dad and millions of others answered the call. I love my dad. He's my hero. My dad was. In my book, you will see a chapter on my father and pictures of him with the aeroplane that he used to be a part of. It's all in there. I must have it in there. Come here, Dad. My father.
Yeah.
and medals too.
Oh,
And
great.
then me, I'm the same as him. You have to fight. You know, I can hear dogs. It's gone. You know, it was a war. Hey, we had punk to deal with. Disgusting stuff.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna speak a little bit in Portuguese.
Translate. I've got plenty of time. All the time you want.
Yeah. No, it's just like gonna be like a short version, I think, but I have to explain that. Bom, falando em português rapidinho aí, ele fala que para entender um pouco de como foi a carreira dele, tem que entender o que ele é, como ele foi criado, né? Ele vem de duas famílias diferentes, a família da mãe dele é ligada com entretenimento, né? E o pai dele, né, lutou durante a Segunda Guerra Mundial, né? Isso tem um efeito moral bem grande para ele, assim, né? Tanto que ele fala ali depois na finaleira que o pai dele é o herói dele, né? Mas ele vem de duas famílias distintas, assim, o lado da mãe dele, que era ligado com música, com shows, né? E o pai dele, que queria também que ele fosse para o serviço militar, mas ele não quis. Né? Então, tipo, ele começou numa escola particular também, que eles queriam que ele tivesse uma educação, mas ele também, depois ele estudou na mesma escola do Bruce Dixon também, mas, tipo, ele não gostava de escola, não era um negócio dele. Mas ele fala ali que o pai, ele aprendeu muito com o pai dele a respeito de trabalho, coisa e tal, se o trabalho vale a pena, né, fazer, então faz ele, mas faz bem, né, tipo, se é um trabalho que vale a pena ser feito. Então, ele fala ali que para se estabelecer o rock and roll naquela época ali, no pós-guerra, ele cresceu logo depois da guerra. Então, tipo, Londres estava toda destruída, toda acabada. Então, a ideia de música ali não era música da época ainda, era música meio que atrasada um pouco, né? Então, ele fala um pouco ali dos heróis dele, musicalmente falando, né? Como foi, assim, ele não gostava do Elvis Presley também, né? Tem toda essa questão musical, assim. Então, tipo, como foi evoluindo, né? Então, para eles ali, a coisa começa a andar mesmo, foi na década de 60, né? O Led Zeppelin, ele também não considera uma banda tão de heavy metal, assim, né? Considera um blues, um jazz, country também que eles fizeram. Então, tipo, tem toda essa alegoria, assim. Mas ele é um cara que ele fala, ele não fomenta a guerra. Eu estava comentando com ele sobre, né, nenhuma guerra é boa, assim. Ele fala ali, o pai dele, o vô, eles foram até as linhas. Tipo, tem uma interferência de como tu cresce isso e de como tu evolui como pessoa também. Ele fala que ele e o Steve Harris, né, também são guerreiros, que eles lutaram as batalhas deles. O Steve Harris, né, para estabelecer o Iron Maiden, né, teve a batalha dele, e ele para se estabelecer dentro do que era naquela época tentar vender o heavy metal, né, fazer com que o heavy metal se estabelecesse. Quando tu chegava lá era um manto de cabeludo, né, ninguém gostava da galera de moto e cabeludo, e ele tinha que vender isso para a indústria de entretenimento, que ele travou uma batalha bem grande para conseguir que isso se estabelecesse, né? Ele e o Steve com o Iron Maiden. A gente sabe que o Iron Maiden foi uma das bandas, é uma das maiores bandas de heavy metal. O Iron Maiden não chegou onde chegou simplesmente lançando um disco, né? E ele também não chegou onde ele chegou simplesmente sendo meramente um DJ, como ele dizia, não é um DJ, ele é várias coisas, né? É um cara que a batalha dele foi para tentar fazer com que isso viesse à tona, com que o entretenimento aceitasse o heavy metal, que naquela época estava recém saindo, né? E Jay, pode perguntar?
Não, só para a gente não se estender mais, está excelente, né? Muita informação. Eu queria perguntar para o Neal a questão do termo New Wave of British Heavy Metal. Ele teve participação, né? Inclusive a gente conversou com o Thunderstick do Samson, né? Então esse termo ele pegou de uma maneira, né? Se popularizou mundialmente, sim, mas o Neal teve alguma participação em criar essa terminologia, né? E como as bandas, se ele entende se as bandas realmente entenderam que seria uma oportunidade de mostrar o seu som através de um rótulo novo, né? Porque o heavy metal já existia antes, né? Nos anos 70. Ele ganhou um rótulo e eu sempre tive curiosidade para entender se realmente o Neal teve participação direta no termo New Wave of British Heavy Metal.
Okay, Jay is talking about the new wave of British heavy metal. If you have any involvement of coining the label of new wave of British heavy metal, we have the opportunity to talk to Thunderstick from the Samsung, and said that you were very important for that. You know, like
I know people say that, right? But in actual fact, you have to look at it, I think, in a different way. First of all, when I left the London clubs, I couldn't work with that shit music anymore. I wouldn't. Even though I was very experienced, I'd had 2 years in the London clubs. I'd been 9 months in West Berlin. I was a very experienced disc jockey. I was. And back then we all spoke. It's not like playing a session and saying nothing. In London at the time, if you lost the dance floor as a DJ, they would throw you out the club. The name of the game was to hold the floor, and I never forgot that. It helped me when I played at the Sound House, all the heavy metal tracks, putting them together, keeping the floor buzzy. Anyway, look, I left London because I left the clubs because I was not going to play that shit for anyone. I was out of work. I had nothing. I couldn't work. I didn't want to play that sort of music anywhere. So I went trucking. I got a job with a truck company delivering heavy furniture around the London area, mainly the west and north side. And I was driving a truck. I got tickets too. You don't believe what's coming next. Anyway, so for about 18 months, I worked for this truck company, driving a good-sized truck, delivering furniture with somebody else with me, with crew of 2. But one night, one afternoon, my truck buddy that was, driving with me, he said, listen, I know a place that you are going to love. Because by then my love of rock was beginning to build, it really was. Yep. Very big. And he knew it. And he said, look, I know a place in Kingsbury, northwest London, not far from where we all lived at the time. So I'll take you there tonight because you're going to like it. It's a Wednesday night. It's the one night of the week they play your kind of music. So we'll return the truck to the depot. We'll go home and clean up. And I'll meet you out there at 8:30. It's called the Prince of Wales, Kingsbury Circle. And it's better known as the Bandwagon. Because in the 1950s and early 60s, the Bandwagon was a side hall attached to the pub, the Prince of Wales. It was big. And they used to have country and western bands there. That's why it's called the Bandwagon. Popular name in country music for the good old boys. We have both kinds here, country and western, right? Seen the Blues Brothers. Right. So I went down there with him. I met him outside. There were loads of bikes all over the place. And he was a biker as well, my friend. So we rode down there, the 2 of us together, parked up outside. We go in. Fuck me. There's the biggest damn sound system I've ever seen in my life in this place. And I'm used to club sound systems. But back then, they were all shit. They were designed for discotheque. This system was part of a big, well-known live PA, the sort of thing you'd see on tour with a band, but like one unit of a side, not many. It was loaded with fantastic stuff. Well, Gauss drivers in the bass bins, Altec Lansing horns, fucking great big things, super tops, high mid, low mid, upper bass. My God. It was incredible. Never seen anything like it before. Wasn't mine, obviously. These guys, called Steeples Discotheques, they had the entertainment contract for this pub from the manager of the pub. The pub was owned by Charrington's Breweries. That night, one of these guys on stage, they all like shirts and tie men, you know. They were playing hard rock, or trying to, but it wasn't that good. They put out a call that very night that if anybody wanted to try out to come up on stage and join the crew as a heavy metal presenter or hard rock presenter, you can come up now and audition. That night, I went straight up there, got the job. That's how I got to the Sound House. And that's the truth. As regards the new wave of British heavy metal, that crept up on us. First of all, I had to establish the Sound House to be a credible, professionally run place that the music industry would want to be a part of. How do you do this? My club was about 25, 30 kilometres north of central London. Back then, the music industry never went anywhere outside of London. If they want to see a band, it has to be at the London Marquee or one or that. You know, that was their creed. They wouldn't move. And I came up with a load of marketing ideas that was very, very, very risky back then. If it didn't work, I would be laughed out of the place. But if it did work, I'd win the game. I was beginning to get known by the record labels because they knew I had a heavy metal club. Jeff Barton from Sounds came down eventually. I kept phoning him to tell him what I had. He was the heavy metal journalist from Sounds. Eventually, he did a centre page double spread on the survivors report, would you believe it, from a heavy metal discotheque. That's what he called it. He was absolutely blown away. When he came down, we blasted him all over the place. My sound system was serious, man. Fucking amazing. And it didn't matter much about a light show. We had some lights, but they were peripheral. Anyway, so this went around the world in Sounds. The music industry saw it. They started supporting me with DJ Copy's white labels. I needed it all, but their artists needed exposure because they couldn't get any. They wanted to come on tour, but the promoters were booking punk, which I hate. You're going to find that Steve Harris and I think the same. It's a load of shit, not interested. It's rude, abusive, non-musical, destroys real music, and they can't sing, write, or play. So fuck them. I wouldn't touch one, never have. And I don't care who knows it. I have never once, ever gone anywhere near it. So in 1975, I joined the bandwagon. That's when that night was. By 1977, punk was all the rage. It was everywhere, clubs, pubs. We were fighting a hell of a rear guard action. In the midst of all the punk rage, I had the only heavy metal sound house in the whole of my country. And it was backed up with the biggest sound system anyone had ever seen. It was so loud that I had to fly the discotheque console and mixer on chains from the roof because the vibration on feedback with my magnetic cartridges used to cause feedback. So loud and clear and never distorted at any power because it was designed for real instruments. Perfect. Anyway, eventually I went to CBS one day. I heard Ted Nugent was coming over on tour. And I thought, it's now or never. It's got to be now or never. I said to them, listen, how about letting me have Ted Nugent and his band for a personal appearance at the bandwagon? after one of his shows or whenever you can, and we don't have a late license, you know, we're finished by about 11:30 at night. But they said, well, Ted's got one night off between the Hammersmith Odeon shows. I knew all of them up there, especially they handled Epic as well. Fuck me, they had everyone from Boston downwards. Even Muff Winwood was on the guest list, the boss of CBS London. Anyway, I arranged it with my contacts that Ted would come up to the bandwagon with his band and meet the kids and sign autographs. And it was the first time it had ever happened, ever, in such a small place. And I was very nervous. I had a huge guest list. I invited all the journalists from Melody Maker, Sounds, everybody that could be anyone was there. I needed the publicity. If I could pull this off, no other record company could ever refuse me their artists. Because if Ted Nugent could do it, they can. And I needed this desperately. Jeff Barton was there from the press. Melody Maker were represented. It was set for 9 o'clock at night. They were supposed to be there. I'm very nervous. I'm on my stage. I'm playing Sounds to people. Half the members of the bandwagon didn't believe that I was going to do this. They didn't believe me when I told them. The other half, they did. Anyway, 9:10, 9:15, looking bad. And suddenly, at 9:20, Ted Nugent walked into place with his band, with a full entourage from CBS London. The whole fucking lot of them were there. And all the journalists went mad. Ted came up on my stage. He was absolutely amazing. We had an incredible night. And next week, the press was full of it. It had never, ever been done before. Never. And I was happy enough to be the first. After that, the story of the bandwagon, the legend grew. It grew worldwide as people were seeing all this. And the fans were coming. I had all the seats thrown out, every single one. No one sits down in my club. No one wears a shirt and a tie. You come here dressed like that, you can fuck off out of it. I'm not having it. And I did throw them out if they came that way. Not happening. I made the place my version of a little piece of special land in the midst of a war. Outside was shit, the government rules, the punks, and all the other crap. Inside, my land. See? And the ones that I welcome were bikers, followers of fans of hard rock, heavy metal. I stretched out across the water to America. I got good support from the American labels and stuff too. You know, from New York City, Riot came on tour to back Sammy Hagar, and Sammy Hagar came, had him at the club. I had members of Rainbow there, Motorhead there. And always you have to continue to let the thing expand and grow. You must keep the press on your side because others will come. I did, Rob Loonhouse walked in the door of the wagon one day with a hardboard Flying V guitar. We all said, Rob, there's no strings on it. What are you going to do with it? He said, play a Priest number and I'll show you. Judas Priest, fine. And he was air guitaring with this thing he made with a whammy bar on it, right? I saw this and I thought, idea. At the end of the year, I ran Headbanger of the Year contest. And I had members of the Soundhouse fan club as judges for this. And it was very successful. And I invited the press down because I thought it was very unique. And they all covered it. A night of extreme lunacy. The year after, I did Headbanging Band of the Year. They were allowed only cardboard instruments, some of them turned up with cardboard backline. 4x12s, heads, road crew, plugs. It was absolutely balmy, but the press loved it. The legend of the wagon carried on. I was by now with my bike club as well, and I used to take up to 120 bikes on a Sunday, maybe to the coast. And I made the rule, when the biking members of my club were in the bandwagon, we do a run Sunday, each one of you must take a bandwagon member as on the back of your bike. So there's a bike club member and a Soundhouse member, and we'll all go down to the seaside for the day and cause hell, and then we'll come back again for the night show. And with all this going on, it was incredible, absolutely incredible, never been done before. And that's why the legend of the Soundhouse really happened. It's a matter of management and business common sense. And also, I by then was a very, very experienced DJ. I should say that I started DJing in a youth club when I was 15. I entered the National DJ Championships 3 times. I wasn't allowed a 4th, I kept winning it. Hey, I won it 3 times in a row, and I was already a DJ at 16, 15. So it was meant to be, absolutely meant to be. Tell them the story in Portuguese.
Yeah, I'll try.
There's a lot more coming, boys. There's a lot more coming.
Bom, ele fala aqui
no começo about all this, eh? They'll never believe you. They ain't gonna believe you. It's in the book.
Fala que essas histórias vão estar no livro. Vai estar no livro do Neal. Não tem, é muita história. Só a pergunta-chave, por favor.
Não, vai. Eu vou só nos pontos chaves ali. Como o Jay falou, como ele falou, tipo, vai estar toda a história contada no livro, né? A respeito de aconteceu, mas um breve resumo, assim, ele fala como começou toda essa coisa. Ele largou do clube que ele tocava, né? Ele começou a trabalhar como motorista, e um cara que era colega dele levou ele para um clube que ele achou muito legal, assim. Pô, ali ele começou a trabalhar a ideia de fazer com que a coisa... Em Londres, a coisa só acontecia na marquee. As empresas, as companhias, elas não iam sair daquela zona de conforto deles para ver outras bandas. Então, tipo, ele tinha que fazer alguma coisa, né, para chamar atenção, né, e conseguir fazer com que os caras se interessassem por essa coisa. É DJ desde os 15 anos, sempre teve essa coisa assim. Quando ele foi pro bandwagon ali, ele fala que, tipo, aquilo ali revolucionou tudo, né? E também, quando ele descobriu que o Ted Nugget ia tocar lá, ele convidou ele, tentou mexer os pauzinhos tudo para conseguir que ele tocasse, né? Estavam no coisa, e ele anunciou que ele ia tocar. Do nada aparece o Ted Nugget lá, e a galera vai à loucura, assim. Ele convidou todo mundo da imprensa para estar lá e ver esse evento. Então, aí ele conseguiu que a coisa desse certo para ele, e ele conseguiu, né, começar a aparecer mais na mídia, conseguir mais credibilidade, porque era o que ele queria. Ele tinha que conseguir credibilidade para o clube dele andar, né? Tanto que o clube dele ficou muito famoso naquela época. Fala de aí.
Só para a gente agilizar, Christian, assim, é muita informação, a gente está aqui extasiado, assim, feliz demais. E o Neal foi um dos primeiros DJ a viajar com as bandas.
Isso, né? Ele fala ali, né?
Isso, ele comentou ali.
Ele fez um festival lá sobre que ficou bem famoso, que era um gurizão lá com a guitarra em V lá, tipo, loucura total, Judas Priest. Né? Então, tipo, tem toda essa coisa assim que ele ajudou a criar, ele estabeleceu isso, né? Não praticamente o termo New Wave of British Heavy Metal, mas o pub dele que ajudou com ele era o cara que era o DJ dessas bandas, ou ele que ajudava a divulgar. E ele conseguiu fazer o quê? Um pub onde os caras eram membro do pub e membro do motoclube ao mesmo tempo, né? Pô, nunca tinha isso. O primeiro a fazer isso, né? Então, tipo,
Qual...
ele conseguiu fazer várias coisas.
Muito vanguardista, né? Muito vanguarda.
É.
Pergunta para ele, por favor.
Que...
Oi, pode falar.
Pode falar, fala.
Não, só para perguntar para ele qual foi a performance que ele presenciou. Ele é o cara que testemunhou a história. Ele é a história do heavy metal. E ele presenciou inúmeras performances. Qual o show, enfim, ou a banda que ele viu, assim, que é a performance the best one de todos os tempos para ele? O que ele viu, assim, que falou assim, cara, essa banda é foda.
Okay. Jay is asking about bands performing, and what was the best
performance to that.
You saw on a club? You saw, this is the
band thing. I'm getting there, but I have to explain something else equally incredible. When I started at the Bandwagon, rock only had one night a week. That was Wednesday. On Sunday, there was a band playing in there called Bethnal. They were not a heavy metal band. They were a sort of covers band. The rest of the nights, all the other DJs that worked for the company that had the contract, they were playing like dance music of the day, pop music. We had a problem because there was no membership, there was no way of regulating who came in, and it was obvious. On the other nights, there were like little kids in there, girls and boys, usual story, 13, 14. In my country, this is dead illegal. You have to be 18 to go inside any venue that sells alcohol. Anyway, this kept happening more and more and more on their nights. And one night, the police raided the Bandwagon. It wasn't on my night, it was one of the other nights. And of course, they found underage drinking, underage kids, little girls with their sisters' passports trying to claim they're 18 when they're 13. Listen, it goes on all the time everywhere. It always will. But the police did not like the Bandwagon. They did not, and they wanted it shut. And we got taken to court. I had to go to face a court. The manager of the Prince of Wales, the pub, and the guys I worked for asked me to go to court and speak on behalf of everybody, because I had a good voice, I was well educated, and I knew how to deal with them. You have to be a man of many different faces, you know, many different faces, and that's important. Anyway, I agreed that I would represent us in court on the day that the license came up for, the pub license came up for renewal. And the police inspector stood up, and the magistrate, the judge, asked him, what's your objection? And he said, well, there's all these young people underage drinking in there. There's a smell of drugs in the air. Oh, fucking dear. And a whole load of other shit. Anyway, they opposed the renewal of the license. Before the judge ruled on it, he said, is there anybody here who speaks for this venue? And I stood up and I said, Your Honour, I do. I represent the Prince of Wales and the Bandwagon, the music venue known as. I am perfectly willing to converse with you. What can I do to save this venue? And the magistrate said to me, what happens on the night you work, because the police didn't raid your night? I said, no, they didn't. We play a different kind of music. We play what's known as rock music. The people who come are older. They're usually couples. They don't cause any trouble. There's never been any. There's no fights. They're all overage by a long way. A lot of them are from the biking fraternity. They're happy in there. They drink well and they leave quietly. The judge asked the policeman, is this so? Is this right on a Wednesday night? Has there ever been any trouble on a Wednesday night? No, he said. No, there's been no trouble on a Wednesday. And the magistrate, the judge, believe this is it. He said, well, your name is Mr. Kay. I said, Mr. Kay, I will be willing to grant a 6-month provisional license on the conditions, 1, you run a professional membership with proof of age, over 18. Absolute. 2, your sort of music only can now be played in this venue. What? He's just given me 6 nights a week. And he said the other stuff cannot no longer be played. Only your kind of music can be played. And if in 6 months you've kept everything clean and it's proper and the police have no further objections, I will make your license permanent. God, the government gave me 6 nights a week and threw all the other shit out. I got 6 nights a week at the bandwagon from 1. Unbelievable. Unfucking believable. The magistrate must have been an Iron Maiden fan. Who the fuck knows? Unbelievable. Anyway, from that moment on, I had to fill other nights. And that's where the band thing started. I put the Soundhouse straight on the hard rock circuit straight away, and I started auditioning bands. But I wouldn't have just any band there. The bands that played at the Wagon had to be of a certain standard, and there's a reason for that. I had the best sound system in any fucking place in London. Any band had to be at least sounding as good as that. My fans, the followers of the Soundhouse, were used to the absolute very best. And any band that comes in there has to be good. They have to know how to entertain. Not everybody could do it. Samson came, Angel Witch came, Toad the Wet Sprocket came. Oh, and now, Jeff Barton, my friend at Sounds, the journalist, reported all this. And soon after we started playing bands, I had to have stage blocks built to add on to the front of my stage, because there wasn't enough staging for a band, only for me. So I had big stage blocks made to extend onto the dance floor where the bands could play. Anyway, soon after all this happened, Jeff Barton called me one day and said, we would like your heavy metal chart, which is made up of the fans' requests every week, because Thursday night became chart night. I collected all the written requests from the week and compiled a chart. And Jeff Barton said, I want to print your chart in Sounds as the heavy metal chart. Thank you, Jeff. Goes worldwide. That's when tapes started arriving. Bands around the world, but obviously at first from Great Britain, but from the Channel Islands, from Ireland, from Scotland, and then from Europe, Norway, Germany, France, even Spain, started arriving, all these demo tapes. And I developed a system where I would play what I considered to be the best floor track of some of these demos. I would say to my followers, my fans, right, Soundhouse, in the usual way, if you like the track, go out there and have some fun, and afterwards make some noise and let me know you liked it. If you don't like it, don't make a sound and put the thumbs down, and then you won't hear it again. I leave it to you to judge. And in this way, the rule of what's played and what's not played is in the hands of the fans. I just played the demos. Then the Praying Mantis demo arrived first, 6 months before the Iron Maiden demo. And I have Iron Maiden's demo cassette right here. Give it a minute and it might, and hopefully it will settle. I'm trying to get it read. But this is the actual cassette from the Bandwagon, the Iron Maiden demo that Steve Harris gave me. I don't know why it doesn't want to. Bloody well, hang on. Let me try it without the plastic. It's not happening, is it? It doesn't want to bloody well come up. What a pain. Usually it does. I have no idea why that is.
Yeah.
That is fucking crazy. I've not had that problem before. Well, for your information, Prowler, Invasion, Strange World, and Iron Maiden are the tracks on it. The date, the all-important date, the 30th and 31st of December 1978, recorded in Spacewood Studios, Cambridge. And this is the tape. This is the tape that Steve Harris gave me early in January when they came up to see me. It still plays.
Whoa.
But I don't often play it because it's priceless. I'm sure you understand that this cassette is worth a huge amount of money now. But it's my history. I also have the Praying Mantis one too, and the Samson one. I've got loads. So that's how the bands arrived at the Bandwagon. The judge gave me control of the venue. He gave me 6 nights a week. We did different things on different nights. We only played bands maybe once a week or twice a week. The other nights I used my incredible sound system, and we even went quadraphonic. I devised a thing where we would tell the life story of a certain band in words and music. For example, Free and Bad Company together. After all, one led to the other. They were in standard stuff, the AC/DC story. So on other nights, I devised other things. You know, we had what we call a connoisseur's night of music. This was not for headbanging and going crazy on the floor. We had a night of music that could be Rick Wakeman, Gordon Giltrap. It could be Yes, Genesis, Floyd. You know, I'd play all this. Robin
Camel. Camel.
This was for the connoisseurs who liked highbrow rock to listen to, because our sound system was magnificent, especially orchestrated stuff. Sounded fantastic. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, you know, the nice.
Yeah.
Yes, we'd have a night of this sort of music, and the sound system enhanced it. And when we did the Genesis story and the Pink Floyd story, we did them in quadraphonic. I got more equipment in, and we set up a quadraphonic arena inside the sound house with huge stacks. And it was like being there in the gig. It was fantastic. And of course, people loved it. Like, you know, it was so very unusual in 1977, 78.
Yeah.
Everywhere else was just playing a load of shit. We had all the attention. The press loved us. The record companies loved us. And at this stage, I started getting invited by the industry to go and compare big shows. They knew me. They knew I was a very professional person. They knew that I was not fooling around. They knew that I could control and look after things in a very professional manner. So when our favorite rock bands came over from America or, you know, or Canada, I used to get invited by the promoter to compare the shows at high level. I compared Rush to the Hemispheres in England. I did, oh God knows, I can't even remember how many. Whitesnake I did, Ready and Willing. Got God knows. You know, I did a Motorhead tour, didn't like it much. They're not my sort of band, but Lemmy was a friend. I knew their management anyway. And I got invited. Well, April Wine came to the bandwagon from Canada, and I got invited to do a tour with them later. I started touring 1980. I started being invited onto tours. I must have been the first disc jockey ever to go on a major tour. I did two Iron Maiden tours. I did a Judas Priest tour. They were friends. In fact, for 9 months, even longer, I was managed for my big shows by Judas Priest management company, and Mike Dolan, their manager, managed me for Anna Carter, their management company. Rob Halford and the Priest were my friends. When Rob came to London, he lived in the Midlands, he used to come to the bandwagon just for a drink, see me. At the same time, I was invited by Mick Parker, the manager of the London Music Machine, a venue that was previously the BBC TV Theatre, held about 1,500 people. I was invited to run my own weekly show there as well. If I wanted to, I could do it. And there in London, I could put 3 bands on in one night because they had a late license. I used to go on the floor as the DJ, and the bands worked on the stage. And I used to do, that's where we first ran into Samson. They got a booking. I brought all sorts of bands down from the north of England. I gave Def Leppard their first gig in London.
Yeah.
Some of them were only 14 and a half, 15. Their manager contacted me, Frank Stewart Brown at the time. They came with their mums, their dads, their grandparents. Toad the Wet Sprocket was another great little band I put on Metal from Others. That was the next thing. My contact at EMI one day said to me, listen, you get all these demo tapes, why don't we do a compilation album? They're all unsigned. Let's put one together. And what he really meant was, why don't I put one together? Because I've got all the cassettes and all the demos. And I did, but I got sort of shafted, you know, because I wanted better artwork. I wanted all the bands to come to London. I wanted to go into studio and produce and arrange their songs. The only ones who did that were Mantis and Maiden. This was before Maiden got signed. Metal from Others. At the same time, I got an unbelievable phone call one day from someone in Tokyo. I've got the book here, Music Life, this magazine called Music Life in Japan. They called me and said, listen, we know all about you. We want to send a journalist over to cover your story of the club. How did it all happen?
Oh.
And I said, well, all right, you know, and they wanted me to write the story of the bandwagon. And I did it in 3 episodes. And I sent it to Music Life, and they published it 1 a month for 3 months. And then the journalists came. Then White Snake's record company came from Japan, and they wanted to get me to record the introduction of songs as if there was a big crowd out front of the sound house, and I would introduce the tracks from Ready and Willing. And they paid me a lot of money for that. For fuck's sake, my life was going mad. All this was like 1978, really, 79. And all the time I was trying to invent things, you know, to keep everything turning over, to be interesting, because I was a youth leader before anything. At 16, I was made a youth leader of the local youth club, which is why I went in for the DJ contests as well, for the club. I was thrown out by my parents anyway. I wasn't even at home. I was living in a a squat with some friends in North London. Man, who cares? You know, I had a vehicle. I had a Ford Transit van of the day, which is what I took to West Berlin with my future first wife. There's too much here to go fully into all this, but at the sound house, I had a good base. Everyone knew where I was. The industry was being very, very kind. They were giving me anything I wanted. Fuck me, I did tours like I couldn't believe. When I got the Rush tour, I was absolutely amazed. We were playing to 10,000 people a night. Wow. Yeah, Bingley Hall, Stafford, yeah. Not just Hammersmith Odeon. That was 3.5 hours. I did a Christmas show with Iron Maiden at the Rainbow, and I was their support. There was no support band. I was their support act, just playing records and talking to people and having fun. Yeah, really, yeah. I know this sounds impossible now. It's so very, very long ago, but I promise you this is true. By then, Rob Loonhouse, the hardboard guitar player, had his own band of hardboard musicians, Willie Flasher and the Raincoats. Willie Flasher and the Raincoats. And on that Christmas show at the Rainbow with Steve said to me, listen, I've got an idea. Why don't you bring Willie Flasher on stage to mime a couple of numbers in front of 4,500 people? I was like, really? He said, yeah, do it. And they did. Willie Flasher and the Rain. I introduced them. They were so good that some people at the back thought they were real live. And they were brilliant. It's not like the contests of air guitar today. They're a load of shit. They're contrived. They put it on. They do stupid things. Rob Loonhouse and the rest of those guys, it was a spirit thing. It was from here, the heart. And it was fun. That's why we all did it. I never did it for the money. I never did it to be famous. I did it because it was fun and somebody had to do it. Yeah. If rock was going to survive, then there was a war to be won. And Iron Maiden couldn't establish themselves unless I established something for them. And Steve had to establish a great band. But remember, this would be difficult for them because when Steve was in the early years, where does he go to get a gig? Most of them are punk. Some of these people said to Steve, we'll give you a gig if you play punk. He was very rude. I would have been, fuck you, is my answer to that. Go fuck yourself. He wasn't changed, and you mustn't. You've got to be true to your cause. And as I said, the bands came. I had Pete Townshend's younger brother was one of the first bands that we had at the Bandwagon at the Sound House. And recently I found out, I didn't know this, but Keith Moon's first band rehearsed at the Bandwagon, believe it or not, in the 60s. Yeah, Keith Moon and his first band rehearsed there. I never knew that. A real madman, Moon the Loon. Oh yeah. Anyway, you know, my manager Mike Dolan, that's how I got the first Monsters of Rock, the Donington comparing job, the very first. Mike Dolan got that for me, and believe this, Steve Harris was my guest. I got him a guest pass to be my guest. We laugh about that today, really. When Steve came over the first time I met Steve Harris, I think Dave Murray might have come with him, or Paul. I'm not sure. I can't remember now. Steve brought this cassette that won't bloody well show itself, unfortunately, with him. And he came up to the stage. He was a stranger. I was northwest London. He was from East London, Essex. He came up to the stage. His idea, he told me later, was just to get some gigs at the Bandwagon. He came up to me. He said, listen, mate, he said, would you... Oh, it's nearly come. Look, it's trying it on the side. Dates at the top. Hang on. There you are.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said, you know, would you listen to our tape and maybe give us a gig or two? And I was very rude at the time. I didn't know him. He was, you know, I said, oh, you and a million others. When I'm ready, if I listen to it, I'll call you. I took it home, as I did with all demos. Never listened to them first at the Wagon. I took them home. I put the cassette in the machine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd heard so many tapes, and apart from Praying Mantis, which was really good, this I knew was going to be big straight away. I just knew it. I got all fucking weird feelings and shit going on, and I couldn't stop playing it. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning before I stopped playing it. I said to my first wife, you know what, Michelle, this is really gold. This has to be. This must be. It's so fucking good. It's exactly what we need. Must be. Now, I phoned Steve up the next day. I said, listen, I've heard your tape, and you're far better than just a few gigs. I said, you've got to get there. You know, you're going to be a very, very, very wealthy boy, and you've got one hell of a future ahead of you.
Yeah.
And I don't care who's going to argue with me, and they will. I'm going to get you there. And I said, I'm going to help you in every way that I can. I'm going to go see all my record company contacts with this, and I'm going to play the bollocks out of it, and I'm going to let them all hear it, because you're so worthy. You've got a great band there, really big. And he laughed, you know, and I did. I started taking this tape round the record companies because I wanted a successful big band for the Soundhouse, and that would help me to establish what I need. But of course, the first person to turn it down was my contact at CBS, who declared it to be no. How could they say fucking no to that? They had Judas Priest, very similar. Phonogram were interested, but they didn't have the budget left. They didn't have the money. Back then, it was always standard, 3 years, 3 albums, and by the 3rd year, your advance was paid back. That's how it worked. That's exactly how it worked back then. And that was pretty standard around the industry. A&M turned them down, but I knew they would. I just went to my contact, Charlie Ayres, and I said, well, what do you think? And he said, it's not our cup of tea, and that's fair enough. I used to play Styx a lot. Styx were a fucking great band. Not the singles, but the album tracks and pieces. You know, Pieces of 8 was probably the greatest album they ever did. Queen of Spades, Blue Collar Man, Long Nights, and my favorite track of all time with them, Come Sail Away. What a song. I love ballads. I really like intense ballads, like Scorpions ballads. Very, very good. And I like them with orchestra too. I do. These days I'm working with a film composer. I arrange and produce music today, rock mainly, classic rock. That's what I do.
Great.
And I've got albums that I've remotely mixed from here down to Portugal, funnily enough. And you know, I'm not a DJ anymore. Anyway, the bands continued to come to the bandwagon. The punk thing continued. The record industry didn't listen, which is why I went to the Music Machine as well to show off 3 new bands every week. We had weird ones, Witchfind from Nottingham. They were a kind of a black magic fucking band. But the great thing was that things were slowly moving.
Yeah.
More American bands were coming over. The press were beginning to take notice. And having a big stage to work from was really, really useful to me. It's all very well being in the bandwagon, but going to Donington, going on tour, I was the first. DJs had worked at one-off big shows, commercial DJs, you know, pop music DJs, but no one had ever toured at high level before. I was the first. And then, unfortunately, it all came to a stop when a mobile discotheque called Powerhouse. They went to my manager at the bandwagon and told him that they could do a better job than me for half the price. And my manager was already going to the Bahamas 3 times a year on what he was earning off my back. Gentlemen, when I started work at the bandwagon in 1975, I don't know quite what this is in. Well, you don't do euros anyway, do you? I was being paid £25 sterling a week, which is nothing. When my son was born in 1979, they grudgingly moved that up to about £85 a week. So at the wagon, I wasn't working for the money. I was in the fight for rock and roll. And as my dad would say, you start something, you got to finish it. And if you finish it, you've got to win, you know. But Powerhouse went along to the manager and we got 6 weeks notice. And they threw me out the bandwagon along with Steeples Discotheques, the guys that I was working for, the subcontractors. And the Powerhouse turned up with a shitty, silly system. These people were doing like weddings, private parties and that, and they thought that they could replace me. What a fucking... And they were a joke. Their first night, no one was there other than half a dozen of my fans who threw tomatoes at them, eggs at them. They got fucking well staged, man. 6 weeks later, the bandwagon closed. They couldn't do a thing. I moved the show to the London Music Machine until it burned down. But my band work continued in a different way into the 80s when an old friend of mine called Jim White. Jim White was the manager of the Scottish band Nazareth, an incredible Alex Harvey band, and Hawkwind. And he'd been living in America. He came back to the United Kingdom and he opened up a massive studio complex in London, London Bridge. And he phoned me up one day and asked me if I'd manage it for him. You know, had 2 levels, the whole block on 2 floors. You know, we had a recording studio there and rehearsal facilities, good gear too, Roush amplifiers, Soundcraft 1642s in the rehearsal facilities, good microphones. You know, so I still carried on, but Samurai became my base. You better translate some of this.
I'll try.
Não vai dar.
Ok. Vamos lá. Falando um pouco ali do bandwagon, né, o que foi o bandwagon e a importância dele dentro do cenário, assim, eles tiveram alguns problemas com a polícia, mas não nos dias que ele estava lá. Ele estava sempre na quarta-feira. O que aconteceu? Eles, tipo, tinha muito gurizão lá de 17 anos e eles estavam com a licença, né, para bebida para maior de 18, né? A polícia queria fechar o lugar de qualquer jeito. O pessoal do bandwagon escolheu ele para representar o bandwagon na corte. E ele, né, sabia falar bem, coisa e tal, foi chamado para representar o bandwagon, contou a história de como é que era quando ele estava lá, não acontecia esse tipo de coisa, né? Aí o juiz, né, deu uma concessão para ele de 6 meses, né, para que ele pudesse se ao trabalho dele, coisa e tal. Se em 6 meses não tivesse problema, o Bandwagon podia continuar na ativa. Então ele conseguiu fazer, né, tudo direitinho, conseguiu
Oh, God.
outras bandas dos Estados Unidos que acabaram indo para lá, que também começaram a tocar lá. E isso começou a despertar mais o interesse, né? Ele começou a ficar famoso, ele começou a fazer os music charts também, que os jornalistas pediam para ele fazer, né? Ele começou a ganhar nome. E aí também tem a história do Steve Harris, né? Que foi lá para levar a demo do Iron Maiden para ele, né? Tipo, só para deixar lá. Ele não tinha costume muito de escutar as demos, assim. Ele chegou em casa, foi escutar a demo que o Steve deu para ele, né? E aí ele, quando ele escutou, ele disse que aquilo ali era o que ia dar certo. Ele tinha que investir naquilo porque aquilo ali ia dar certo e aquilo ali ia levar ele junto. E apostou fundo no Iron Maiden. O Iron Maiden também conseguiu fazer com que ele também aparecesse. É interessante também mencionar que ele é o único, o primeiro DJ a fazer tour com bandas, né? Ele era convidado das bandas a ir junto na turnê. Nenhum disc jockey fazia isso. Ninguém conseguia fazer isso. Ele conseguiu. Né? Ele foi o primeiro a estar junto das bandas em turnês. O que foi um fato. Essa relação ali dele, do Steve, ajudou bastante. Ele fala também que era muito difícil naquela época por causa das bandas de punk. As gravadoras só queriam punk. Então era uma guerra que estava sendo travada ali para ele conseguir botar o estilo, né? E convencer as gravadoras, o pessoal da música ali que o heavy metal tinha espaço, né? Porque eles só queriam punk. E o Iron Maiden, né, conseguiu, né, mostrar. Ele fez um show também no Bandwagon junto com o Rainbow e o Iron Maiden, que o Steve convidou ele para ser o DJ no palco. Uma coisa que ele falou que foi incrível, né? Tipo, tá ali junto com as bandas assim. Ele tinha na época o melhor sistema de som, coisa e tal. Então quando ele aparecia, o pessoal ia justamente por isso, né? Tipo, ele sempre prezou por qualidade, né? Tanto que depois tentaram tirar ele lá, foram cobrar metade do preço do que faziam e o bagulho não deu certo.
É visionário, visionário. Vamos encerrar. Para encerrar, Cristian, enfim, né? É história que a gente está aqui, é muita história. Pede para o Neal falar se ele conseguiu colocar tudo dentro do livro, que a biografia dele aí, né? Pelo Stephen Juras, que teve com a gente aqui, né? O grande Stephen, né, que intermediou esse contato, inclusive com o Neal, só para ele falar se ele conseguiu colocar todas essas histórias no livro, né, e se o livro aí tá, como é que se diz, tá atingindo as expectativas.
Okay. Jay is asking about your biography. If you were able to put all the stories and more other things in the book written by
it's 300 pages long. There are 180 pictures, photos, my own personal ones, a lot in there. All through my life, strange and wonderful things have always happened to me. I am a very spiritual person today.
Yeah.
It is as the result of an extraordinary set of circumstances that has led Steve to me to Steve. And well, I just have to tell you that when I left the bandwagon, after a few months, my phone kept ringing. Every venue now that was playing rock wanted me in their venue on the night of rock all over the country. And I thought, shit, I haven't even got a damn sound system. So I went out and I had an idea. Crazy, but I wanted it, and it was the only way to go to war. If you're going to war, gentlemen, you need to arm yourselves with the correct weapons. I went out and bought a 7-ton truck, a 7-ton lorry, And then I bought a 9,000 watt sound system from Megas. And then I bought a light show that had to be built for me. 30 300 watt parcans in 6 banks of 5 colours in a light truss that flew across the stage, bolted together in the middle on A-frames each end and winched up on the people, not me, on the floor, and 2 great big strobe lights, white lightning strobes, one at each end of the light truss. And it all went in the 7-ton lorry. And I got a 4-man road crew. In fact, I had 2 crews because I was working 6-7 nights a week. East London, I had a separate crew from Northwest London. And we used to go to Bristol, Gloucester. I had to be a big truck. And I was the only one old enough to drive it. And I had the paper for the truck. None of my other crew could, except my crew boss, Ken Childs. He was a very, very, very capable older guy. And the crew were brilliant. I had a terrific road crew. I never said anything. They knew what they had to do. And we were doing 6-7 a week. I got really ill because the 7 a week was killing me in the end. So I accepted all these bookings, these gigs all over the place, visiting other people's rock clubs with my light and sound system. Bigger than the Bandwagons one. It was fucking huge. Yeah. I had 4,000 watts of sub bass alone. 2 bins each side, loaded with twin 15-inch Gauss drivers. That's how you kill people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the only, no one ever, a DJ in a 7-ton lorry over 40 years ago. You think about that.
Yeah.
Outrageous. But that's how you do it. If you're going to make a statement, then make a fucking point. I didn't care. It was great fun. I was always on the road. So that helped as well. The clubs were given a standard sound house. Neal Kay's heavy metal sound house on the road advert delivers the power. That's what it said. Neal Kay's heavy metal sound house delivers the power. And by fucking Christ, it did. I got a technician to look after my amps and stuff. I had 2 amp racks with graphics in them, just for heavy metal discotheque. No bands.
Yeah.
See, the idea is ludicrous, man. It's got to win. You've got to have the balls. It's all about being positive, winning the war, having the balls, and going to do it. That is the way to win.
It's all
in my book. The picture of my truck is in the book as well. It's a Ford. She was a 4D series. Yeah, she was a 4D series truck. Big fucker with a big box on the back. She was lovely, man. Air brakes.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing. Most DJs use an estate car, an SW, you know. Little DJs carry their little pokey speakers around in an estate car. I needed a 7-ton fucking lorry, man. Yes, did I ever? Yeah. Well, Samurai, it's just amazing, and that's the truth. Yeah, it's in the book, and you know, we deafened people, we killed people with that system. Yeah. I loved it. Only, I got a CD player as CDs came out, but mainly I majored in vinyl and cassette. Still, even on the road when I was working at Samurai, I had an arrangement with the governor, with Jim. If I had a booking come in, I would do the night booking and come in later the next day. I was doing everything.
Okay.
You know, so we went through the Samurai years. In the meantime, I injured. Oh yeah. Well, Praying Mantis came into the studio on a pre-tour and pre-production for a tour to Japan, and their promoter sent a message to them, amazingly, asking me if I would go on tour to Japan with them.
Oh.
The fucking DJ on tour to Japan. I was worried because I didn't know if I could still be Neal Kay, the disc jockey, because by then I was also training as a front of house sound engineer, which I've done. The front of house sound tech too. I am not recording studio engineer, but very much live. And you know, and I didn't know if I could do what they wanted in Japan, but I accepted, unbelievably, to go on tour to Japan with Praying Mantis, who by then had Dennis Stratton in the band, Bruce Bisland from the Sweet, Tino and Chris Troy, and a few other hangers-on and whatever. And I decided I'd do it. And I got a rapturous reception in Japan. Remember, I'd already had the Japanese come to me for the story of the bandwagon in 1977. They knew me. And unbelievably, a character called Masa Ito had built a heavy metal sound house in Tokyo, and I was the guest of honor at my own sound house. And the kids are incredible. Well, I mean, I sit here today with the presents that they gave me on tour. This is, you get all these things when you go. This is a warrior, Japanese warrior. That's how they see me. I've also got a samurai sword that they sent me from Japan as a gift. And following that, while I was there, I had an idea about another Metal from Others, because at Samurai I was collecting demo tapes, some good ones. And I spoke with Mantis's A&R director, and we came up with Metal from Others 92. I did it. I produced it, arranged it, got money from Japan, Fuji Sankey Communications, Pony Canyon, and I recorded it all in Boundary Row. I took my recording engineer from Samurai to another studio because it was better. Gary was a member of the band Flight 19. The battle for Flight 19 was across the Samurai years, but it's very long and involved. Let's just say that Gary was an incredible musician. His father was the leading conductor of the Salvation Army Orchestra. Gary was classically trained from the age of 4. He could play guitar, piano, keys, and horn, trumpet. And this is the level of musicians that I was working with. I worked sound for Art Garfunkel. He came into our studio before his Albert Hall shows at Samurai, and I was his sound engineer at Samurai. Art Garfunkel, one of my 60s heroes. You know, I was mixing with some incredible people. Didn't like most of them. We had Boy George in the studio, Banana Rama in the fucking studio. Didn't like any of them. Load of shit, like, you know. Boy George was all right. He could sing. His band were okay, but the others were all pop people and I fucking got time. I did my job and that's it. But I ran the studio for Jim as studio manager, and then Mantis came in to rehearse. I went to Japan with them, came back with an album deal almost from Metal from Others 92. And in the course of recording, before that happened, I also was invited to be the executive producer on the currently being recorded Mantis album. There was a Mantis album and I was their executive producer as well. you know, so I mean, by then you got to understand I'd moved on a long way. I'd learned an awful lot, and I really enjoy studio work. I did enjoy live work as a sound engineer until the digital age came to sound desks. I can't. I'm too old. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't handle a digital desk. I've got to be honest. It fucks my head up. But I love using analog desks, and I did.
I prefer the analog too. It's like my explanation is my ear is analogic, not digital. I don't have like anything put in there.
It's all about heart. It's all about, I like feeling the knobs and the faders.
Yeah.
I don't like buttons, you know.
Wait, crumbles in your ear.
Well, I did the sound for the Faro Bike Club for their big show at the same time as my own Portuguese band that I was working with did the headline spot. They're called Irish, and they were one hell of a band. But all that, I injured my back whilst I was recording the Mantis album in studio. And Steve let me stay in his villa on the Algarve to recuperate with Manu da Silva, his #1 down there. And in the course of that, he introduced me to this band that he was trying to manage very unsuccessfully. And I took them on. I signed them in the end, got a deal from a Portuguese company, got a company formed in Portugal, production company, you know. I never stop, you see.
Yeah.
The trouble with me is that when I see a challenge, I have to take it up.
For sure.
I've lost. Oh, there he is. Yeah, the challenge is what it's all about. And I started in Portugal about 1986 or 7, when Portugal was having a real power problem. You know, the infrastructure was very, very. I mean, I went on tour with my own band over there. I was front of house. I was managing them with a Portuguese guy in my company. We flew out to the Azores, to Madeira. I was with a Portuguese band. I don't even like English people in Portugal. They're all twats. They ain't got a clue. And I love being, and I lived in Portugal amongst the Portuguese people for 2 years, 3 years.
Oh, great.
Yeah, really. As I moved with the band.
You can understand a little bit of Portuguese.
Yeah, a little.
That's kind of difficult.
Wait, por favor. That I know.
Obrigado.
2, 3, 4.
Christian, vamos encaminhando.
I do speak a little, but not a lot. But I mean, I did mix with Northern Europeans. I lived amongst the Portuguese community. I had in a fishing village called Fuzeta, where the band were based. They had the tumble down cinema. Domingos Caetano was the leader of this band, and he ran a music school. And I started working for the music school. No, free, no money. Didn't want the money, didn't do it for that. And we built a place of training for rock, School of Rock before School of Rock.
Yeah.
We taught little kids up to, I don't know, 16, 17, 18, 19, all the way. Drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, vocals, and also backline road crew work, cabling, putting cables together and working on stage and stuff. And I built 2 kids bands as well when I was there. Custom built 2 kids bands. One were about 13, 14, the other about 14, 15 maybe. And they were only a covers band, but they got booked a lot by bike clubs, a lot of bike clubs in Portugal. a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, I knew the Faro Bike Club anyway. Steve knew them. I knew them because I did sound for the big show in Faro one year when Irish were headlining the act. I did 3 days for them, and I know them, and my little band were doing real good. Hey, they used to play "Come Sail Away" as a cover. That's fucking unusual, man. Very, very unusual. But that's it. I made them do different covers other than the usual stuff, and Judas Priest numbers and Rainbow numbers.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try to give like a very short version about the book.
Go.
Bom, ele fala ali que vai estar tudo no livro, são mais de 300 páginas, tem um prefácio do
só isso?
Harris aí, né? Cheio de foto, né? Tem inclusive fotos assim, ó, depois que ele saiu lá do bandwagon, né, ele decidiu que iria para uma guerra. O que ele pensou que queria todo clube queria ele como DJ lá. O que ele pensou? Vou fazer uma loucura, vai ter que dar certo. Mas não vai entrar numa guerra, tu não vai entrar numa guerra sem munição. O que ele fez? Ele comprou um caminhão de 7 toneladas e encheu de equipamento.
Isso é legal.
Ele montou praticamente um equipamento de show para banda. Tinha os rigs para luz, amplificador, caixa enorme. Tipo, ele era um DJ que fazia um show de banda com cassete. Então, tipo, era a coisa mais louca que tinha ali. Então, tipo, depois que eles entrevistaram ele no Japão também, depois ele foi junto com a banda para o Japão também fazer tour como DJ, né? Então, tipo, parou em Portugal também, onde ele morou 2 anos, né? Assessorou banda lá também. Tipo, ele também trabalha como engenheiro de som. Ele trabalhou tipo numa escola de rock de graça, não fez, tinha as crianças lá que ele contribuiu bastante também. Então, tipo, tudo isso tá no livro também, né? As fotos do caminhão também estão no livro. O caminhão é gigante, né? Então, tipo, leiam o livro, né? Assim que sair, comprem o livro, porque é muito interessante.
Não tem ainda, não tem no Brasil, depois confirma.
Não tem no Brasil, né? O Stefan, né, falou para nós que ele vai trazer algumas versões para quem sabe falar inglês, né? Quem quer comprar o original em inglês. O Stefan talvez traga algumas versões, mas a gente espera que o livro seja lançado logo no Brasil também. Eu acho que vai ser bem legal. E só para finalizar, falar para ele uma coisa, né?
Agradece.
Agradecendo tudo. Okay, we are finishing. Okay, thank you very much for having the opportunity to talk to you. And I would like to add one thing. I don't know if you are going to agree with me, but without Neal Kay, there would be no Iron Maiden. Without Iron Maiden, there would be no Neal Kay. How do you feel about it?
Well, actually, Steve and I recently spoke on the phone for about an hour and a half. We have retained recently a great friendship. It was meant to be. It really was meant to be.
Yeah,
I've got one more story for you before you go. But there would have been, I feel, an Iron Maiden because they were so strong. But it may have taken a lot longer.
Yeah.
And both Steve and I agree on that. But the thing is, we've both said that wherever Maiden are, Neal Kay's spoken of. Wherever Neal Kay goes, Iron Maiden is spoken of. We know, Steve and I, that we are linked in history forever. We know that. We accept that. And I love that. I do. But you've got to understand, Steve, to me, is not a rock star. I knew him when he had nothing.
Yeah.
Lived in his grandmother's house. I mean, it's a friendship. It's not, I don't hero worship people. And Steve would not want that either. He and I have known each other since 1979. And he was a friend then. He used to come over to my apartment with my first wife, and he brought his first wife with him. And we used to have nights together, as indeed I did with Paul Sampson too. Yeah. You know, I haven't hidden myself away from people. I'm a very outward going social person. And furthermore, I decide to call myself an entertainer rather than a DJ.
Yeah.
In a DJ, it's just a matter of playing them and saying a few words. But my family history makes me make them laugh. You've got to make them laugh and then you'll win. But in my case, it's done with music. I don't tell jokes. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But by playing certain things at certain times, I can make people go crazy, and I know how. So I'm an entertainer. The other thing I really wanted to tell you about was an incident that started off my spiritual thing. And Steve knows about this. He's spiritual too. Two things. One, I'm not going to tell you how I got involved in spiritualism other than it's through my first wife. She believed and I didn't. And I got taken to see a very big psychic medium one day who was signing her book. And I couldn't be bothered. I went because my wife wanted to be there. We're queuing up to see her. And suddenly she pointed at me and said, you, come here. Me? Yes, you. And she said, I'm very honoured to meet you, young man. You're going to have a very important job to do in the music industry with a certain friend of yours. Now, this friend of yours in a previous life saved your life, and you will do every possible thing that needs doing in order to help them in this way. Your friend is tattooed. He's got tattoos and he has very long hair. And you think that his band is going to be really big. Well, they are, but you have to make it so as well. Since then, I have heard that story millions of times. I have been told that in another life, Steve Harris saved my life. And that is why I could not walk away from this if I wanted to. Well, in my book, I've come up with some theories which are hilarious and they will make you laugh. I'm not going to tell you now. You'll have to wait for the book.
Yeah, we have to wait for the Portuguese version.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so.
We hope so. We hope.
Well, you have to
Stefan is going to be here, and he said that he's going to bring some of the books in English because there are people here who are able to read.
The other incident that I want to tell you about happened to my father towards the very end of the Second World War, with Germany beaten. The Allied forces were being reduced a little for the Air Force. There was nothing left to bomb. The Americans by day and the British Royal Air Force by night had destroyed everything that Nazism stood for. There were no buildings left. In all the occupied territories, the Russians were advancing on Berlin. It was clearly over. And members of the Air Force were being diverted into land army to help to clear up the mess that the German bombing had created with shovels. And my father didn't want to do that at all. So he decided that he would volunteer to go and fight the Japanese because he hadn't had enough. He wanted more. So he volunteered for the Royal Air Force out in the Far East and was transferred to Air Transport Command, not flying armed planes, but the DC-3, the Dakota, the twin-engine transport, unarmed, and these planes were dropping supplies to people on the ground, to the army in Burma and India. And my father was due to be transferred one day from one airfield to another. They were forming another squadron or something, and they were flying these guys, these airmen, up to the new base. Anyway, Dakota held about 23 people. They put my dad's kit bag on board the aircraft, and he was waiting in line to get on board the aircraft when he suddenly fell over in a dead faint. He didn't wake up for 9 days. He had a really bad bout of malaria. He'd been bitten by a fucking mosquito.
Yeah.
And he couldn't join the flight. When he came round in hospital, the base hospital, the commanding officer came to see him and asked him how he felt. I mean, Dad said, well, I'm all right, getting well. I want to go and join my crew. I want to go up country. And the CO said, you don't know, do you? And Dad said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, when that Dakota, that DC-3 took off from here, an hour later, it ran into a heavy storm and it finished up flying into a mountain, and everyone on board was dead, killed in the crash. And if my dad hadn't have fallen over, he would have been too, and I would never have been born. Now you think about that and the importance of that, and that's only one thing. There's a lot of other weird things that have happened to me since. When I used to go and see mediums, psychic mediums, all I got were messages for Steve and Maiden. And I used to have to phone him up and say, hey, I've been to see a medium and they say this, this and this. It's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
They used me as a conduit to Steve. So that, I mean, that is an incredible story that really happened. And I'll let you think about that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's in the book. Everything's in the book. I have missed out nothing. A couple of the really big mistakes I made, I've put them in the book. I have nothing to hide, gentlemen. I consider myself very lucky, very fortunate. It's been a hell of a ride. It's been an incredible life. And there's been bad times as well. There hasn't always been money around. I admit that. But my faith and my belief has always been to rock and roll and the life. I ride motorcycles. I did. I flew. I did everything I could. I've still got longish hair, tied up today, but sort of still there. And I've fought for the cause that I believe in, and I've honoured those that went before me, especially those that I named to you earlier. They must never be forgotten because it was their fight that established what we have.
Yeah,
sure. That's the important thing. And this story needs to be told. And also there's a chapter in there, well, there's a political chapter. There's a chapter in there about how it works in a band, what you have to do to actually get there, what it requires. I've outlined the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, if anyone thinks it's easy and a joke and just want to rehearse for 2 hours a week, that ain't going to cut fuck all. You need to make a huge sacrifice.
Yeah, for sure.
You need to be completely as number one in rock and roll. That's it. It comes before your wife. It comes before your life. It comes before your travel. It comes before your dog. If you want the success at the top, you also have to be equally talented. Every member of the band, back and front. The vocals have to be as good as the back line, if not better. Everyone has to be the very best that they can be. And the band should rehearse at least 3 times a week, 4 hours a night, maybe 4. If you mean it, then that's what you have to do. You know, it requires it. You're never going to get there otherwise. And you need to be original, and you need to write great songs too. And you need to be able to record, and you need to be able to perform live before anything.
Yes.
Because live is what rock is all about. Live.
Yes.
Live. Not cheating on the bloody internet. That's not it.
Yeah.
You know, it's dead simple, really. Selfish is what you need to be. Very, very selfish. until I stopped the Sound House in '92, my show, I never had a New Year's Eve off. I never had a Boxing Day off. I never had an Easter off. I was always working. I had Christmas Day, and that's it. And even at Christmas, I sometimes do big shows. It is a selfish existence. And people have to be prepared, you know, to do that. Otherwise, they're never going to get there. And they have to be ruthless as well. If somebody in the band's not pulling their weight, out.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
sure.
but that's how it is. I've explained all this in my book, and I've gone to a great length to, you know, help people along. You can, it doesn't matter if you just want to have fun with a semi-pro band. That's cool. You know, you're not going to try and get anywhere. Play a few covers, have some fun, learn about music.
Yeah.
And if you, yeah, I mean, just have fun. But if you really mean to try, then I'm afraid you need to change your life.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, lads.
So, once again, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was great to talk to you, okay? And we really hope to have your book here soon in Brazil. We're going to talk to Stefan next month.
Give the book a plug in Portuguese on your radio show. Tell them about it. And if you need me to come back again, I will. I'll be happy to do another one with you. If maybe your listeners want to ask me questions, you know, or whatever, I'll be happy to do a question and answer session with you. I've enjoyed tonight.
Yeah, that would be great, for sure. Let's hope they really do the book.
Yeah, if they want it, I'm happy to do it. Just arrange it with Stefan.
Yeah.
Or myself now, because we're on Messenger. And, you know, I'll be pleased to do that.
For sure.
You know, I just want to help people move into the area that we all love so much. We need them. If we don't, you know, it's very diverse now. It's not so strong as it was in my day. There's this lot, that lot. You know, all it's doing is thinning down the audience.
Yeah.
So we need everybody. We need technicians, sound engineers, lighting. We need all these trades. And they're honorable now.
Yeah.
So we need all these people. We need great musicians, performers. We need it all. And the job now is to, you know, help promote all this. That's why I did the book. Anyway, listen, you two, it's been an absolute pleasure, Christian and Jorge.
It was a great pleasure.
I've really enjoyed myself. It's been a lot of fun. But
So did I.
you're going to find a lot more in the book, believe me. I've only just touched the surface.
For sure.
There's some very, very great stories in the book, and 99% of them are dead true. It's just weird, unbelievable, if you like. Hard to believe, but it is my life.
That's the
amazing,
best part
amazing.
Of it. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Neal.
Have a good night.
Now, faz mal.
Yeah.
Muito bom, incrível.
Exactly. Muito bom. Sim.
Well, sim.
All right, lads. I know. Oh, yeah. I've got, my Portuguese words are tinged with the Algarve accent.
Yeah.
They're a bit nasally. That's because everyone I learned from was that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really.
Incrível. Thank you very much, Neal. Bye.
Gentlemen, thank you again. You
welcome.
know where to find me. If you want me, I will be only too happy to help you.
For sure.
Ciao for now, fellas. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good night.
Galera, se inscreva no canal e até a próxima. Christian, brigadão. Abraço.